Vicious Syndicate Data Reaper Report number 228 is out. This is the first Data Reaper report that's going to have data from the latest expansion, Voyage to the Sunken City. Something that I'm always interested in looking at, and if you're trying to improve at Hearthstone, trying to get a better rank, Vicious Syndicate is definitely a resource that I would recommend. If you're not familiar with Vicious Syndicate, they are the most influential Hearthstone publication within the top-end community. They publish lists. They do a lot of work with data analytics as far as players submitting their data on the games that they've played, and then that's really where they come up with refined lists, and then the top players kind of reference those lists, go from there, and then as lists are refined at the top end of the meta, they tend to filter out down through the rest of the ladder. So Vicious Syndicate, great place to go if you're looking for really, really refined deck lists for each and every class. I would also like to say right now, I am not associated with Vicious Syndicate in any way. I don't do any of the work on it. I have no part in it whatsoever. As you can see right here, it's the work of all these fine people. They work hard, and I think they have a great product here. So vicioussyndicate.com if you're interested in checking out the site on your own as well. And I'm just a fan of what they do. I like going over it, and that's something that I'd like to share with you. So taking a look here, number of games, 755,000. That's definitely a lot of games. A lot of times they don't have this much data, so it just really speaks to at least people contributing their data to Vicious Syndicate are playing a lot of games, likely because there's a new expansion. Scrolling down a little bit farther, looking at the class distribution and archetype at all ranks, looks like mages are still really popular. Mech Mage and Quest Warrior actually appears to be the most played deck at all ranks. And then you can see the filters here. I tend to focus on Legend and top 1K Legend just because that's where I play. And as you can see, you know, as you get to the Legend rank, Ramp Druid really starts to take over. I'm going to have some thoughts about Ramp Druid here in just another minute or two. The thing that really surprises me, though, just looking at this, is at Legend and Top Legend, just how much Quest Warrior is being played. Second most played deck behind Ramp Druid at Legend, and you know, still third most played deck even at top 1K Legend. That surprises me because the deck can steamroll, but usually at these ranks, you know, people know exactly what the deck is doing, and they can pretty much just like play around and counter it. So to see people playing it that much at these ranks is really, really surprising to me. Typically it tends to fall off at the higher ranks, so that's really interesting. Pirate Rogue seeing some good representation here, and Mech Mage, you know, still around in Legend. Class frequency discussion, new expansion launched, rotation occurred, yet we're getting a familiar feeling from the days of Onyxia's Lair. Pretty much what they go on to say is Ramp Druid, you know, we just came out of the rock, paper, scissors meta, as a lot of people called it, with Ramp Druid, and then you had Aggro that would try to beat Ramp, and then you had the defensive decks that would try to beat the Aggro that was targeting the Ramp, rock, paper, scissors type of thing. As you can see here, and you've probably noticed by playing on the ladder yourself, Ramp Druid is still really, really strong. It may actually be stronger now than it was prior to this set being released. Again, I'll talk more about that here in just a moment. Mage is an entirely new class this year, using minions as a core part of their strategy. So if you'll remember, prior to Year of the Hydra, Mage was doing a lot of spell-heavy decks, even spell-exclusive decks. So Mage actually has minions worth playing. Now that's a step in a different direction and a positive direction as far as I'm concerned. I love playing Mage. I actually always like playing Aggro Mage, which is something that I haven't been able to do in a long time. So doing something different here with the Mech deck. Mech Mage is popular at lower levels, gradually declines on the climb. Naga Mage shows the opposite trend, so Naga Mage is being played a lot at high Legend, and Mech Mage really tends to fall off. Quest Warrior exploded the first couple of days of the expansion. I was still, I think, Diamond 3 when the expansion launched, and I actually finished my climb on the first day with Pirate Warrior. It got some new pirates, some cheaper pirates that really kind of rounded out its ability to complete the quest. Typically by turn 6, turn 7. A lot of times, you know, you're completing that quest on turn 6, play the reward turn 7. Definitely strong, which was how I finished out my Legend climb this season. However, already noticed a significant decline in its present at top Legend. Not too different from what we've seen from the archetype in the past. Control Warrior is around, numerous builds, high experimentation. I actually don't see Control Warrior. I couldn't tell you the last time I played one. I don't think there's a very good refined list just yet. And it remains to be seen, you know, Year of the Hydra, new set, new core set, just how good Control Warrior is going to be in this first set of the new Year of the Hydra. compared to Quest Warrior, nowhere near as refined. So exactly what my thoughts were. Pirate Rogue, another common ladder opponent. It's actually the only rogue that I see other than the Naval Mine Rogue. I've got a video on the Naval Mine Rogue. If you're interested in that, feel free to check that out on my channel. It's fun, but it's not going to be a deck that's going to win you a whole lot of games. When I made that video, when I was playing that deck, the meta was significantly different than it is now, and it just can't compete with like the hyper aggression of Demon Hunters, and then of course Ramp Druid. It actually just can't get there. So unfortunate, but hopefully we can see more from Naval Rogue at some point in the future. Popularity pattern likens a typical rogue deck rather than a typical pirate deck as it becomes more popular as you climb the ladder. So the higher up you go, the more rogues you're going to see. They're going to be playing pirate rogue, which is an aggressive deck. Powerful rogue set seems to have pushed this one deck, and all of the rogue archetypes are nowhere to be found, which is a bit unfortunate. Demon Hunter was the class players were least excited to experiment with as a collective. However, a shift has begun to occur. The class is picking up traction at higher levels of play, and that influence is trickling down. Aggro DH is at the center of attention, with Fell Demon Hunter taking a back seat. So, Demon Hunter, I believe this report, you can see a little bit lower down here, this report was based on data from 412 to 419, so the last couple of days aren't included in the report. Aggro Demon Hunter, certainly one of the decks that you're going to run into the most on the ladder these days, and the deck just gets better and better as it's being more and more refined. Definitely a very powerful deck in the meta that looked like it came about really within just a couple of days. Behind all the hype surrounding its core set additions and its new set, Priest is trying to figure out how to win Hearthstone games. Shellfish Priest, which aims to fatigue opponents, is the most popular strategy that has emerged. Switcheroo looks to abuse Switcheroo by swapping stats between Finn, Twin, and Deathwing. Quest Priest trying to figure out a Reno build. Other decks are also around in smaller numbers. Silence, Bless, Dragonborn. Priest actually really struggling right now. It just has a hard time beating anything, so it can definitely win games, but there's no good consistent Priest deck. That kind of mirrors exactly what I've seen on the ladder, and of course Vicious Syndicate has the data to back up what I've noticed here. Hunter hasn't changed much on the surface. Until Quest rotates, there's always going to be Quest Hunter, and there's always going to be a Face Hunter just because of Hunter's hero power, just being an aggressive hero power. Quest Hunter with two familiar variants. There's Face Hunter with Beast rotating out, Nagas coming in. Big Beast Hunter quickly fading after initial interest in the first couple of days. Look, Big Beast Hunter, I know certain people love Hunter, but they don't want to play Face and they don't want to play Quest. Big Beast Hunter, it's fun, but it's not a good deck. You're probably not going to win the majority of your Hearthstone games if that's what you're choosing to play on a consistent basis. Shaman, another messy class, but with one generally clear idea. The Burn Shaman cluster is extremely diverse, basically ranging from more value to more burst. Murloc Shaman is spotted, but is quickly being abandoned. I was one of the people that spotted and quickly abandoned Murloc Shaman. I played a few games with it. It was interesting. It was kind of fun, and in my mind, I'm kind of like, ooh, Murloc Shaman, this is going to be great. But it fizzled out. It just can't compete with the strongest decks that are around right now. It needs just a little bit more support. I feel like it's kind of close, though. But we'll have to see. Murloc Shaman could be a thing later on, though. Probably not in this set. We would have to see what the mini set brings about, and then maybe going into the second set of the year. Paladin displays three main strategies. Mech Paladin is the tribal, simple-to-build deck that emerged first. I don't see a whole lot of Mech anymore. I'm actually not sure how strong that deck actually is. I do know it's very, very annoying, and there's definitely some very strong cards in the deck. Reno Paladin is an attempt to leverage Lightforge Cariel with the healing swing of Reno, but this deck appears at top legend. I've never faced it. Listen, all Reno decks are bad. Reno isn't good enough anymore. The first time it was in the game, even sometimes then it wasn't good enough, because if your opponent has a board and they're punching you in the face, even if you drop the Reno on turn 6 to heal all the way back up to 30, if your opponent still has the board, they just do all the damage again the very next turn, or 2 turns later, and you're back in the same spot, except you don't have that big heal. So Reno decks, they're bad. Highlander is going to need more support before we're going to see some of those decks really starting to look good, in my opinion. Holy Paladin or Control Paladin attempts to leverage the Holy Spell support the class has received and uses Mr. Smite alongside his buffs to finish off their opponents. I've actually got a Control Paladin video. Again, if it's something you're interested in, feel free to look around the channel. Take a look at that. My personal record is a 41 damage Mr. Smite, which just so happened to kill a 41 health Ramp Druid. It felt so good. You might want to give that a try. Warlock is the one class that looks dead at launch. Waning interest as you climb the ladder is concerning. High-level players barely touch it. Abyssal Curse, Murloc packages are being passed over. Again, I did a video on Abyssal Curse. It was the very first deck I started playing. I played that deck a ton the very first day of the expansion. I thought it was fun. I thought it enjoyed it. But again, as the meta evolved and as decks became more refined, it's just no longer good enough. I really don't think there's anything there. It's just a little bit too slow. And you're going to get beat up by these aggressive decks. Against like an aggro Demon Hunter, you stand no chance whatsoever if you're going to be playing Abyssal Curse Warlock. It's going to need some more help over time, or there's going to have to be some significant nerfs to some of the aggro strategies. Continuing down, matchup win rates. Again, if you want to check this out, just vicioussyndicate.com. They'll have a link to the Data Reaper report, and you can kind of see the individual matchups. And they've got ways to be able to select it here. And then the power rankings. At top 1K Legend, Aggro Demon Hunter and Ramp Druid are the only Tier 1 decks. Then you can see followed by Quest Warrior, Pirate Rogue, so on and so forth. So when it comes to Ramp Druid and Aggro Demon Hunter, there's really no question. I don't think in anyone's mind that these are the two best decks. If you're playing aggressive, that Demon Hunter is the way to go. It's really hard for another aggro deck to be able to beat it. You kind of have to tech specifically against it. But if you do that, then you're making your Ramp Druid matchup weaker. So if you're playing at a level where all you're facing are Demon Hunter and Druid, you kind of just have to pick one and roll with it, unfortunately, at this point. Vicious Syndicate power rankings discussion. Druid. If you thought Ramp Druid dominated Ani's Lair with a 50% win rate, we have some bad news. Ramp Druid in the Sunken City is more dominant than its previous iteration ever was. Threat density backed up by Kazakhstan is impossible to deal with for other late-game strategies. Think Handlock with Demon Seed before any nerfs occurred. So what I would say about Ramp Druid is it does everything better than all of the other classes or any other deck. And it's just too good. So I don't have a problem with the power level of Ramp Druid being where it is, but other classes and other decks have to be able to compete with it, and that's just not the case right now. So you think about Ramp Druid. They're guaranteed ramp now. You know, they're running the Wild Growth. They're also running Jerry Rig Carpenter, which can hit Nourish. Nourish, of course, is ramp or card draw if you play the card. Jerry Rig Carpenter is actually going to give you a copy of each. Guff is ramp. And so you're just guaranteed to be able to ramp as this Druid. And then they also have ways to be able to protect them while they're ramping. So they have the 1/1, I think it's the Dozing Kelp Keeper. After you've played 5 mana worth of spells, it wakes up and you have a 4/4 with Rush. I'm seeing people play the 1 mana Druid card. Can't remember the name of the card, but it's either the 1/3 taunt or the 3/1 Rush. So again, Rush to be able to remove an early threat. I've seen Druids playing Doomsayer. So again, they can remove a board and then ramp. And then usually after they ramp, they're able to play Scale of Onyxia, which is another 14 damage worth of Rush. So Druid has ways to be able to stay safe. So it's safe, and then it ramps up, and then it draws a bunch of cards with Miracle Growth, or, you know, if you're already in Guff and you're comfortable with your mana, you could potentially play Nourish to draw 3 cards. You play Miracle Growth, you draw 3 cards, and, I mean, they're making an 8/8, a 9/9, sometimes a 10/10 taunt that you now have to get through. And then they're playing their 1 mana healing spell, Earthen Scales, that's giving them a ton of armor. So you can kind of pencil in Druid for like 18 to 22 armor every single game, and sometimes it can be a lot more than that. And if a Druid ever doesn't have the card that it needs in its hand, it can just go and pull it out of the deck. With Aquatic Form being a dredge, they can pull it and play it this turn. And then with Moonlit Guidance, they can take a look at 3 cards in their deck, find what they need, and actually create an extra copy. They create an extra card. So you'll have Druids that can actually create extra copies of Earthen Scales for even more healing. It's just too good at what it does when you put all that stuff together. And so the only way that you can beat Druid is with a very, very aggressive deck. You have to kill them before they get access to their resources. And going back to the Druid for a second, they ramp so they have more mana than you ever have. Once they hit Guff, they're able to go above and beyond 10, so there will be turns where the Druid actually has access to double the mana that you have. And then they can play the 3 mana Oracle of Elune and start dropping free giants. So, I mean, you're going to have a Druid that has 16 mana. He plays an Oracle for 3 mana, and then 4 free 8/8s hit the board, and then they get a double Ibis. Like, it's insane what this deck can do. So, Druid is probably going to have some adjustments, and they actually announced what those adjustments are going to be today. They're going to be going into effect on Tuesday the 26th. So we're going to be taking a look at those as well here just a little bit later. Demon Hunter, to the surprise of many, Aggro Demon Hunter emerged as the primary answer to Ramp Druid's dominance. Favorable matchup against the late game Tyrant combined with dominant early game matchups make it the strongest choice for ladder from Diamond 4 and above. So if you're trying to get the Legend from Diamond 4, Diamond 5, definitely check out the Aggro Demon Hunter list. It is strong. I've played it some myself. Deck has two variants that perform well, Naga and Token. I actually prefer the Naga version over the Token version, but they're both supposedly pretty strong. Might just be a personal choice kind of thing there. As far as Mage, Naga Mage doesn't seem to deliver results. Deck with a very high skill ceiling based on its improving performance at higher levels of play, but it's no Garrote Rogue. Performance isn't showing gradual improvement. In fact, its win rate is regressing. This is a deck, I know there's some believers out there in the competitive community in the very, very top end of the ladder that think this deck is incredibly strong. It's hard to get those APM turns and you're having to make some very, very quick decisions. Vicious Syndicate seems to kind of think that there's not so much room to be able to outplay your opponent that it's actually going to be a really, really strong deck. And then they go on to note here, it's about to fall off to Tier 4 at Top Legend after hovering around at 50% just a few days ago. So they've also noted room for refinement, but it may not be enough. And then Mech Mage, Mech Mage exploded right off the bat. And then it started to fall off as people kind of figured out how to play against it. Really all of the decks that revolve around a tribe, like Mechs, for example, or like Nagas, they were decks that kind of built themselves. They were very, very obvious to the people that were looking at it, and they played really well the first couple of days of the expansion, but then now they just don't do as well. People have figured them out, and their power level is actually limited, as we found out. Warrior, speaking of decks that are in freefall, let's talk about Quest Warrior. Absolute menace on day one, again, because it was a deck that just kind of built itself, and it ended up being a relatively strong deck. But over time, its performance has begun to accelerate higher levels to the play point. It might eventually sink into a Tier 4 at Top Legend. I know that Quest Warrior really, really dominates in the lower ranks. So, if you're in Bronze, Silver, Gold, Platinum, Quest Warrior can be a real problem, and I don't know exactly why that is. It may not be like a skill thing. It could just be a collection thing. You don't have the collection to be able to make a deck to be able to beat Pirate Warrior, but it's one of those things where it's oppressive at the lower ranks, and at the higher ranks, it's irrelevant. And so it was like that once before, and it was nerfed, so I think people were expecting that it would be nerfed again, not because it's too good at higher ranks, but it's too good at the lower ranks. And that kind of makes a miserable experience for the majority of the player base, because the majority of the player base does not play at the Legend rank, maybe not even at the Diamond 5 rank. So I do believe there is going to be some relief. Again, we're going to be talking about the nerfs here just a little bit later on. Rogue is stuck on Pirate Rogue. Pirate Rogue's future is not too bright. Win rate declining over time, so it's an aggressive deck. There's a better aggressive deck. People are going to move away from Rogue and they're going to gravitate to Demon Hunter if they're playing to actually gain ranks. If you're just playing for fun, you can pick up any deck and play it. But if people are serious about getting a better rank, the aggro deck they're playing is going to be Demon Hunter. Priest looks bad. Shellfish Priest not producing results. Again, I think there's some very, very high-end, high-caliber players who would disagree with this. But, this report is based on analytics, and it's based on data. And the data from a large group of people with lots of deck pilots and lots of games say that Shellfish Priest just isn't good. So the average person, you'll probably pick up Shellfish Priest. You won't be winning very many games with it. If you're somebody like maybe Gabby, you can probably go out and hit rank 1 Legend with it. But unfortunately, there's just not really any way that the average player is going to be able to do that. Face Hunter, another reliable Ramp Druid counter, but its matchup spread is worse. So yeah, you can beat Ramp Druid, but unfortunately, you're going to lose to Aggro DH. And then, it's also more likely that you're going to lose if you run into, say, like a Fell Demon Hunter or a Control Warrior. Quest Hunter has stronger chances to survive if Aggro Demon Hunter spikes in play, as it is a decent counter to it, and has incredibly strong overall matchup spread. Problem, of course, terrible Ramp Druid matchup. I've experienced that myself. It's hard to beat Ramp Druid as Quest Hunter. Quest Hunter already showing dominance in the tournament scene, thanks to the option of a Druid ban. So Quest Hunter really strong if you like playing in some of the Masters Cups qualifier tournaments, or really any tournaments whatsoever. Strongly consider Quest Hunter. You got to get the right lineup around it to support it, but Quest Hunter can be good with a banned Druid, plan. We suspect it could break out and become dominant on ladder if Druid gets nerfed. Could become the next Tyrant. Watch out for this one. So, you know, kind of words of warning there that if Druid gets hit too hard, Quest Hunter could be the best deck in the meta. How would you like queuing into Quest Hunter 25 to 35% of the time? Not sure anybody would enjoy that, but maybe somebody would. I think for me, I just like variety. I like to play against a variety of decks. You know, only 2 decks in the meta. You know, I like a little bit more variety than that. It doesn't have to be every single class, but, you know, I think 3, 4, or 5 decks can make things pretty diverse and interesting if the matchups aren't too polarized. You know, if you have decks that are playing at like a 55-45 win percentage and decisions really matter, that's when I'm having fun. You get a few decks going like that. As far as Shaman, Burn Shaman is suffering from a slow refinement phase. Not too many people playing Shaman from what I've seen. Best build estimated to be tier 2, which isn't bad. Just because a deck's not tier 1 doesn't mean you can't win with it. A tier 2 deck is going to be able to take wins off of tier 1 decks, and it's still a really solid deck. It just doesn't have the overall win rate to be classified at tier 1. I think for Vicious Syndicate, in order for a deck to be considered tier 1, it has to have an average win rate of 53% or more. And I believe tier 2, the cutoff is going to be 51% maybe, so somewhere between 51 and 53. This is one deck that could survive the harsh environment, but its standing against other strong decks in the field isn't too good. Ramp Druid is a clear favorite in the matchup, and it's still suffering greatly against Quest Hunter. Many of its better matchups are also waning, so Burn Shaman definitely got a lot weaker. I think Lightning Bloom being gone hurts it. Lightning Bloom also makes the Wild Paw Cavern card a lot worse. Playing that card on 4 doesn't really feel all that good. And then also with Overload rotating, you lose access to some damage there. And really the deck is being propped up basically by Bioluminescence, just being able to get a wider board and give a lot of them spell power. But sometimes it can be effective. I had an opponent hit me with a 15 damage lightning bolt for lethal one time, just because they had Bioluminescence, and then they had, what is it, Naga School Teacher, the little 1/1 that it created, was able to cast a second Bioluminescence. So for 4 mana, they were able to give their entire board plus 2 spell damage. That 15 damage lightning bolt really hurt. Paladin, Mech Paladin in a similar position to other tribal decks. Win rate is collapsing at higher levels of play, where it'll likely remain a decent competitor in other sections of the ladder. Holy Paladin should become the class's choice at higher levels, where it won't meet as many Quest Warriors. Yeah, that's true. The Quest Warrior matchup has been pretty bad. As I played a decent amount of Control Paladin, and that's spot on, man. You would think that Quest Warrior would be a good matchup just because it kind of plays like an aggressive deck, but it's just not. Quest Warrior feels extremely favored in that matchup, based on my personal experience. Has a good matchup against Aggro DH, Greed, as well as Control Warrior, Quest Hunter, Aggro DH's other counters. However, much like Warrior and Quest Hunter, crumbles under the weight of Ramp Druid and is unable to find consistent success. Again, Ramp Druid is just so oppressive, it's holding down a lot of decks on the ladder. Warlock looks done and dusted. Murloc Warlock is unlikely to be competitive. Curse Warlock seems unplayable. Unfortunately, Warlock is really struggling right now. If you're a Warlock fan, I guess you're just hoping for some good cards in the mini set, unfortunately. Then they go on to get a little bit more specific. Down in these sections, you'll be able to find very, very specific decks. So I'm not going to read through all of this, but just taking a look at some of the builds that they have here. So this is the build that Vicious Syndicate recommends for Ramp Druid, and it looks like they're actually recommending Smothering Starfish. So this is the slot where I've seen Druid of the Reef. That's the card I was trying to think of earlier. This is the slot where I've seen people run Doomsayer. They seem to think that having the silence is going to be better. They also run a Battleground Battlemaster. If you can land a couple of Nagas on the board, then the Battlemaster just wins games. Again, I think that kind of goes back to what they were saying earlier about having the handlock from the United and the Stormwind expansion. Quest Warlock being able to get those big 8/8s down and then play in the Battlemaster. They also have a Beast Druid deck here. I'm not sure how good this deck is, but with Arbor Up gone, you know, you kind of wonder where they get the damage to be able to finish their opponent. Also, the Umbral Owl is gone, so your Oracle of Elune, you've got free Frost Sabers. And then I guess you're copying other stuff. I haven't actually played that deck, but that's pretty interesting. That's another reason why I like Vicious Syndicate. You know, they have things that maybe you hadn't thought of, maybe you haven't seen, other things to be able to try. Demon Hunter. Yeah, this is the version that I like. They've started running Treasure Guards now. They think Treasure Guards are the way to go for this. I could see that. Protect your board and potentially protect your face from taking too much damage. They like 2 Bone Glaives. I like 2 Bone Glaives as well. You just kind of need that damage. At some point, your board just kind of, you run out of board. So you get damage from your board early, and then you're finishing off with Bone Glaives, maybe some kind of Kurtrus plays with the hero power. And of course the different buffs. Token Aggro Demon Hunter, second version of the same list. This just has more tokens, Sigil of Summoning, Wings of Hate. Again, I don't really like this version. Is this the Flag Runner? Yeah, the Flag Runner version, so just a different take on it. Not my preferred version, but might actually be better, I'm not sure. Fell Demon Hunter, not really hitting on a whole lot right now, but they do have a list for that. And then Mage, Ignite Naga Mage. I haven't played Naga Mage at all. I don't think I really have any desire to want to play this deck either, to be honest. Wildfire Naga Mage. I've actually done some experimenting with Ping Mage. They don't have any data on that. Who knows, maybe we can go out and break the meta with Ping Mage. Doesn't seem likely based on what I've played. But it was fun to play something different and take a break. And then Mech Mage, probably the same old Mech Mage list. Sunken City Quest Warrior, this is likely the same list as the first day. Yeah, I don't see any real surprises here. This deck, you know, it builds itself and it pretty much plays itself, but there's little things you can do to maximize the performance of the deck that I've seen people not do. The first thing is, in your mulligan, you want cheap pirates. Like, you would never want to keep the weapon, you would never want to keep Shiver Their Timbers. You definitely want to keep Raid the Docks, though. But you're just looking for cheap pirates, but at the same time, cheap pirates are not all created equal. You know, you don't want Bloodsail Raider, you don't want Fogsail Freebooter. You want Harbor Scamp, because it's going to draw a pirate out of your deck. You need to be able to get those extra resources. You need cheap pirates to be able to complete the quest. Obsidian Smith, same thing. That Dredge, and then the Dredge card can get 1/1 if it's a minion. You definitely want a minion, and you want the cheapest one that you can get out of one of the preferred minions, so like a Harbor Scamp. Tuskar Trawler with a Dredge effect. That's another really good 2-drop that you would be looking for. As well as Amalgam of the Deep. You know, just being able to generate that extra resource. Pick a cheap pirate. Don't go for something crazy like a Stonemaul Anchorman or something like that. Just something cheap. Complete the quest. If you can spend all your mana on pirates every single turn, you complete the quest turn 6, play the quest reward on 7, and then in a lot of cases you're winning the game on turn 8. Sometimes you actually win the game without even having to play the quest reward, as it's just not necessary. Nellie's actually a great card in this deck. It's expensive, it's 7, you know, it's a late game card for this deck, but it's definitely very good the times that I've played it. Not required in the deck, I don't think. You could pick something else if you actually didn't have that card, but when you do play it, it's just really strong and feels so good. Those 1-mana pirates that it creates, just very, very strong. Got the Pirate Rogue list here. No real surprises here. I think you're really just looking to like prep out the vessel and then dredge the sunken vessel. Get those stealth 3/3s into play. And then you're just going face a lot. You know, this is a aggressive deck, an aggro deck. You want to be spending your damage going face. Priest, I'm not interested in Priest. You know, if you like Priest, you can check this out, but Priest, not all that good. Hunter, they're still running Drekthar and Quest Hunter, which I find to be a little bit interesting. I really like this card in Quest Hunter, this Raj Nazjan. It can add a lot of damage after you've completed the quest and you're getting free hero powers. This given damage equal to the cost of the spell that you're casting to the enemy hero really starts to add up. And this card, as things move forward and spells are added to the Hunter class in the upcoming expansions, this card could just get stronger and stronger. They're still running Vipers. I'm not sure exactly why. I guess it's just for the Drekthar targets, but there's really not a whole lot of weapons to break other than if you run into a lot of Paladin. Being able to break the carrier weapon is probably key to being able to win that matchup. But no super surprises here. I'm not sure about the Drekthar package, though. That's just me. Naga Face Hunter, I played this deck a little bit. It's pretty good. Interesting and fun. Being able to get out 2 3/3s on turn 3 with Naga's Pride has been pretty strong. And then, of course, you know, you're playing out a 1-drop. You're buffing it with Doggy Biscuit. You buff it again with Ramming Mount. Raz Najan is here to be able to provide a little bit of extra burst. It's a pretty solid little list. But again, Aggro Demon Hunter is just stronger. Bioluminescence Burn Shaman, so they are still running Wild Paw Cavern. School Teacher, that gives you the 1/1, you teach it a spell. No real surprises in this list either. Scalding Geyser is the new damage card. Unfortunately, it's not popping up. I think it's deal 2 damage and dredge, which is pretty good. There we go. Scalding Geyser, deal 2 and dredge. I got a good memory. Gotta love that. Smite Holy Paladin. Pretty much the same list that I'm running. 2 copies. Yep, I think this is exactly the version that I'm running card for card. So this deck is pretty strong. It definitely is favored against Aggro Demon Hunter. You can beat Druid. I was hovering somewhere around 50-50 against Druid with this deck. The 2 ways that I've been able to beat Druid is just by playing minions on the board. So hopefully you're hitting like, you know, Vicar and discovering a good holy spell into, you know, maybe Bannerman or Sunfish into Cariel. And, you know, hopefully Cariel can discount and Immortalized in Stone. You do something on 5, play one of these on 6, and then either Cariel or Leviathan on 7. So you can win just through tempo, and then hopefully being able to get down some cheap Garden's Grace as well, just for the extra stats that things like Scale of Onyxia can't clear your biggest minion or clear your entire board. And then the other way is just be able to play Cariel and then get the buffs to land on Smite. Righteous Defense buffs going on to Smite, and the Cariel buff going on to Smite. You can actually make a really, really big OTK size Smite. Again, I think I had a 41 damage Smite in one particular game. So you just have to manipulate your hand, play all the minions that are coming into your hand, which can be a little bit dangerous because sometimes you need like a Wild Pyromancer and an Equality to address a big board against some of those Druids. But that's the only way you're going to be able to get a Smite big enough to kill them, because they are going to be gaining armor in the form of Earthen Scales. And then Warlock, not really a whole lot to even really look at here. If you like Warlock and you're just interested in having fun, this looks like it's going to be... I believe this is the list I was playing on day 1. Good news for me. And I haven't touched Murloc Warlock. I don't know how good this deck is either. It seemed like it could be strong, but apparently it just isn't. And for their meta breaker of the week, once the meta settles down, we suspect that Ramp Druid and Aggro DH will sit head and shoulders above the rest of the field, especially at higher levels of play, where the gap in power is only widening. Ramp Druid defines the resource end of the meta spectrum. Aggro Demon Hunter defines the initiative end of the meta spectrum. First set of balance changes is likely just around the corner, so their dominance may not last long. Demon Hunter might even dodge nerfs, but there's little chance of Ramp Druid avoiding the hammer. And so we have actually found out just earlier today, same day that I'm making the video, what those nerfs are going to be. So I've actually got those right over here, and I'm going to throw that up on the screen. You can see here, this is coming directly off of Twitter. Gallon is actually an associate game designer now for Hearthstone, and he tweeted out the standard changes. Pirate Warrior quest line is getting an additional number on its final step, so the third step, instead of 2 pirates, is going to be 3 pirates. So that's going to slow the deck down by at least a turn. Maybe 2 turns, depending on the cost of that final pirate that you're having to play, and whether or not you can play the quest reward the same turn that you complete the quest. So that could actually be a bigger nerf than maybe it seems like right on the surface. Pufferfist losing a health, that one actually surprises me. Anytime I play a 3-4 Pufferfist, I feel like it gets removed, but it's actually going down a health to 3-3. So yeah, I guess I can see that. It doesn't seem like a very super impactful change, though. Kind of surprised to see that in there. That's also going to affect Pirate Warrior and Aggro Demon Hunter. Switcheroo now swaps health only instead of stats. That would be a good change for Wild, but it looks like it's actually banned in Wild according to this. So they don't want people abusing Switcheroo. I've seen some interesting 7/7s come out of the opposing player's hand when they switch it with a Shellfish. Miracle Growth now costs 8 mana, up from 7, so it's going to be spend 8 mana, draw 3 cards, and get a taunt with stats equal to your hand size. I'm really not sure that that does enough, because a lot of times on 7, at least in aggressive matchups, the Druid is going to be playing Scale of Onyxia anyway. You kind of have to take care of the board before you want to be able to get that down. I guess that pushes it to turn 9 to be able to play Miracle Growth and Earthen Scales to get a heal, or turn 8 with an Innervate to be able to get the Earthen Scales out, but I'm really not sure that does enough. Druid just has so many minions with Rush to be able to remove threats and not take damage. I'm really not sure that's enough. And then Kazakazan's activation requirement is getting changed. He'll now read Battle Cry. If you played 4 other dragons this game, craft a custom deck of treasures. That's interesting because I feel like Ramp Druid has not been relying on Kazakazan. The games that I've been playing against Druid, it feels like the game is decided before it ever comes to that point, because they're able to get down a big board of, 0 mana 8/8 Nagas, or they're able to get down 2 really big Ivus. Of course, when Kazakazan comes down, you just kind of feel like the game is lost, especially if they've been able to ramp up to 20 mana. You're just never going to be able to beat Ramp Druid into fatigue. So this will certainly affect Ramp Druid. I think once this nerf goes live, Ramp no longer runs Kazakazan, but I think the deck is actually strong enough to stand on its own. But maybe that means it's no longer the greediest deck in the meta, or it's going to have to be rebuilt to include the 4 dragons. It's going to be really interesting, but this change potentially opens up things like Control Warrior. They were already running 2 dragons in the form of a Nixian Drake. Might even open up Kazakazan Priest. So it looks like based on this Kazakazan change, Ramp Druid may still be strong, but it's not going to be the greediest deck in the format. At least it doesn't seem like it. So really going to be looking forward to those changes, and they're going to be coming out rather soon. It's going to be on Tuesday, April 26th. We're going to be getting these changes, and we're going to get another fresh look at Hearthstone. I'm looking forward to it. You may be too as well. I think changes are good. Being able to do different things are good. Certainly, we don't want to settle down into a Ramp Druid versus Demon Hunter meta. That would be really boring with only 2 decks. So hopefully these changes do enough. Weaken Ramp Druid just enough, and then the Kazakazan change can maybe put some slower, more control-style decks back into the game. That is the Vicious Syndicate report number 228. If you want to check it out, again, it's vicioussyndicate.com. Once again, I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I'm just a fan of what they do, and I thought I would share that with you here. If you're interested in the nerfs, you can check out @GallonHS on Twitter. He announced the nerfs via his Twitter account. I'm not sure if they're actually up on any official Blizzard or Hearthstone related source, but the information is going to be out there if you want to find it. Thank you for watching. Good luck out on the ladder.